We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good afternoon, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to another hour of ASEAN and Focus. And we're coming to you live from Manila and Vietnam. Hello, Eliana, how are you?
Hello, Alma, I'm good. Hello to everyone, I'm Eliana Sebastiana, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. Singapore hanged a convicted drug trafficker today, the fifth execution in the city-state since March, after a court rejected a last-ditch appeal and despite pleas for clemency. A regional envoy tasked with kickstarting dialogue between Myanmar's junta and anti-coup fighters warned there was no magic wand to end the country's bloody crisis. And to Thailand, where Phuket reports its first case of monkeypox. President Marcos Jr. ordered the Philippine Sports Commission to help track and field legend Lydia de Vega, who's said to be diagnosed with cancer and is in very critical condition. First in our news, a regional envoy tasked with kickstarting dialogue between Myanmar's junta and anti-coup fighters warned there was no magic wand to end the country's bloody crisis. Prak Sokhonn, a special envoy of regional bloc, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, warned that there was no quick solution to this crisis. Patience, he said, is the operative word, and there are no shortcuts. There is no magic wand, no special elixir, he said in an online speech to a forum organized by Singapore-based think tank IC's Yusof Ishak Institute. Prak Sokhonn, who is also the foreign minister of ASEAN Chair Cambodia, said it took his own country 20 years to achieve peace following the overthrow of the Khmer Rouge regime in 1979. He said his second visit to Myanmar from June 29 to July 3 had shown encouraging results, as it had paved the way for some humanitarian assistance, including COVID vaccines. He also said he was able to open a new space for political dialogue, even with groups the junta designated as terrorists under certain conditions, including that they must say they have no intention of replacing the government. And while he wasn't allowed to meet with Aung San Suu Kyi, who is currently in jail, the envoy said he was promised he could in the future. Meanwhile, Myanmar junta troops are committing war crimes by laying landmines on a massive scale around villages where they are battling anti-coup fighters, according to rights group Campaign Amnesty International on Wednesday. And here are some images showing damaged buildings as clashes between junta troops and anti-coup fighters continue in eastern Myanmar. Take a look.
In the area, our investigation clearly shows how the Myanmar military is committing war crimes by systematically laying landmines on a massive scale in and around villages in Kaya State, where civilians are primarily paying the price of these activities. Anti-personnel landmines are internationally banned weapons. They are inherently indiscriminate. And of course, it's the kind of weapon that has an effect not just immediately, but long-term in preventing people from returning to their villages and from being able to go to their farms. Our investigation shows that the Myanmar military is committing war crimes by laying these landmines in and around villages. They typically lay these landmines where they are based or from areas where they are retreating, in villages that were in a particular stretch at the heart of the fighting between the military and armed groups. The reality is that these landmines are being laid inside homes, in and around paths to rice fields, inside homes in areas like in the entry to bathrooms, in stairwells. In fact, we've even seen firsthand on the ground how landmines have been laid along the path to a church, and how the primary impact of that has been affecting civilians. What is particularly needed here is humanitarian assistance immediately to help civilians deal with the food insecurity. The fact is, many civilians are unable to go back to their homes and their lands because of these landmines, and they need immediate humanitarian assistance to deal with that.
French oil and gas giant Total Energies said Wednesday that its planned withdrawal from Myanmar, announced 6 months ago, has now come into effect. The French energy giant and U.S. partner Chevron had announced in January that they would pull out of the Yadana gas field, with Total Energies citing the worsening situation for human rights and the rule of law. The field in the Andaman Sea provides electricity to Myanmar and neighboring Thailand. Total Energies had been under pressure from human rights groups to cut its financial links to the junta since the army seized power from a civilian government in February 2021. Human Rights Watch says natural gas projects are Myanmar's single largest source of foreign currency revenue, generating more than $1 billion every year. Sri Lankan security forces demolished the main anti-government protest camp in the capital early Friday and evicted activists hours before the new president was due to name a cabinet. Troops and police special task force commandos armed with batons and automatic assault rifles swooped in on protesters, blocking the capital's presidential secretariat hours before they were due to vacate the area. Hundreds of soldiers removed barricades set up by protesters, blocking the main gate of the seafront building, which demonstrators had partly overrun earlier this month. The raid came a day after veteran politician Ranil Wickremesinghe was sworn in as the crisis-hit country's new leader, replacing Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who fled and resigned after protesters overran his palace. Activists had announced they plan to hand over the building, a symbol of state authority, on Friday afternoon after a cabinet was sworn in by Wickremesinghe. The cabinet, which is expected to feature a cross-section of political parties, faces the difficult task of steering the country out of its worst economic crisis since gaining independence from Britain in 1948. A foreign exchange crisis triggered by the coronavirus pandemic and exacerbated by mismanagement has left Sri Lanka suffering lengthy power blackouts and record high inflation. The country's 22 million people have also endured months of food, fuel, and medicine shortages.
In other news, the United States on Tuesday added Vietnam, Cambodia, Brunei, and Macau to a human trafficking blacklist that already counts Malaysia, alleging weak efforts to stop forced sex work or assist migrant laborers. In an annual report, the United States also added authoritarian-ruled Belarus to the blacklist, and in a rare criticism of a Western ally, put Bulgaria on a watch list over concerns it's not taking trafficking seriously.
Tackling corruption helps to combat human trafficking because corruption facilitates trafficking and perpetuates impunity for traffickers. Our reporting and diplomatic engagement aims to shine a light on these activities, encourage governments to address official complicity, and advance efforts to combat human trafficking, while simultaneously combating the corruption that enables it.
Meanwhile, Vietnam objected to the U.S. adding it to the human trafficking blacklist, saying the move was based on inaccurate information. The Tier 3 ranking opens countries up to U.S. sanctions, although Washington routinely waives punishment for friendly governments that promise action. The State Department said prosecutions of trafficking dropped off in 2021 and especially found fault with Hanoi, allowing a Vietnamese diplomat to remain at his post after he and another embassy staffer in Saudi Arabia were accused of directly facilitating forced labor. Vietnamese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Le Thanh Thu Hang said that the State Department had based its finding on inaccurate information and they did not fully and accurately reflect the situation and efforts to prevent and combat human trafficking in Vietnam. The Philippine passport has ranked as the 80th most powerful globally. This is based on a list released by British consulting firm Henley Partners. According to the Henley Passport Index, Q3 2022 global ranking, the country climbed from the 82nd spot in the same period last year, with its access to 66 destinations increasing to 67 this quarter. The Philippines shares the rank with Cape Verde Islands and Uganda. Japan, meanwhile, holds the most powerful passport with visa-free access to 193 destinations. Singapore and South Korea, with visa-exempt status in 192 places, trail behind as the second most powerful passport in the world. The Henley Passport Index updates its list quarterly and ranks passports according to the number of destinations their holders can access without a prior visa. The index is based on exclusive data from the International Air Transport Association.
To Thailand now, where Phuket reports its first case of monkeypox. Jomerl Baldo joins us live from Thailand. Hello, Jomerl.
Yes, hello, Aliana. Thailand has reported its first case of monkeypox from a 27-year-old Nigerian national who traveled going to Phuket. This is according to the Department of Disease Control, which was reported yesterday, Thursday evening. Dr. Opas Karnkiwampong, the DDC Director General, said that a joint investigation team was sent to a private hospital in Phuket on Monday after the hospital suspected a patient after showing monkeypox symptoms. Last week, the patient was admitted to the hospital with fever, coughing, and sore throat and runny nose. Rashes and lesions in his genital area that has spread to other parts of the body and face has also been observed. A PCR lab test from the Thai Red Cross Emerging Infectious Diseases confirmed the virus infection. Dr. Opas added that DDC has coordinated with the Provincial Communicable Disease Committee to track down those who may have been in close contact with the patient to prevent the virus from spreading. The National Disease Control Committee announced that this was Thailand's first case of monkeypox. Before this, 19 people had been suspected of having contracted the disease in the kingdom, but all tested negative. The DDC urged the people not to panic as the World Health Organization was not yet declared monkeypox as a global emergency. We currently receive an update from Thai PBS. The man has refused medication and has left the hospital. Also, he can no longer be contacted. As of the moment, an active search for the patient is ongoing. 5 of his close contacts have been tested and the results turned negative. More tests are going to be carried out. Monkeypox virus can be spread through contact and body fluids, eating uncooked meat and touching rodents like rats or squirrels, as well as primates that may be carrying the virus. There are now more than 15,000 monkeypox cases worldwide, with 5 deaths reported in Africa, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention last report. From EBC Thailand Bureau, I am Jomerl Bunded-Baldo, and we live in extraordinary times.
Go Negosyo founder Jose Maria A. Concepcion III said the COVID-19 vaccines worth more than 1.3 billion pesos that are expiring by the end of July are losses incurred only by the private sector. In an interview with ASEAN, Concepcion clarified that the vaccines set to expire by the end of July are the losses incurred only by the private sector and do not yet reflect the vaccines it donated to the government. Let's take a look.
So now we're already malapit na tayo sa August, no? That's about what, seven months, no? Close to 8 months by August, no? So marami sa kanila, eventually nagwe-wane na ng immunity nila, no? After 4 months of your first booster shot, eventually it starts to wane, no? Now, ang sinasabi namin, medyo huli na, nag-expire na mga bakuna namin. Ditong July, ang AstraZeneca, hindi na pwedeng gamitin. Itong Moderna hanggang August, pero mga ilan linggo lang yan. So we have close to ang binigay sa akin ng mga tao ko, is we have, in the private sector, we have about 887,360 doses of Astra that are expiring. Dito naman sa Moderna, we have about 628,680 doses that are expiring. So AstraZeneca, mura naman to, $5 lang naman to, no? Pero we donated another, whatever we bought, we donated the same amount to the government. Pero that's not our problem. Nasa government na yan, yun ang donation namin. So kung if we compute what we donated, mas mataas, no? But we don't know whether it's expiring. So we're just computing what we lost in AstraZeneca. It's about $4.4 million, which is about 235 million pesos.
Wow.
No? Kung lahat yan hindi magagamit. Dito naman sa Moderna, that's more expensive. That's $27. No? Itong mga numero, galing sa Zwellig to. Kasi sila ang humahawak ng mga private sector bakuna. No? This is about 628,000 doses. That's about $16 million. No? So kung tutuusin mo, ilagay mo lahat to, it's about 1.1 billion pesos ang mag-expire ng mga bakuna namin. Now, what I'm saying is that anyway, it's there already. Wala tayong magagawa. Malaking pera to sa private sector. Kasi hindi naman namin, we were not obligated to buy it. We bought it because we wanted to help the government. So walang problema dyan. Pero sana moving forward, itong mga dadating na itong taon na to, the balance of the year, we will have to again buy vaccines, no? Whether it's for the booster shot, the second booster shot, or eventually the next booster shot, no? The fifth booster shot, because people are talking about it. But ngayon, tama si Presidente, i-focus muna natin sa first booster shot. But what I was saying is that ang kailangan natin talaga foresight, no? I know I respect our doctors, but we have to also look long-term or medium-term. Kasi kami, we have to plan how much are we going to buy? So we bought all of these vaccines.
So that's why Go Negosyo founder Joey Concepcion also reiterated that many countries around the world have already found that persons younger than 60 can benefit from second boosters. And he suggested that the Philippines follow the lead of those who have studied the merits of second boosters. He reiterated his appeal to the government to approve the second booster shots, as some 1.5 million COVID vaccines purchased by the private sector are set to expire by the end of this month. Let's listen in.
But I really don't know why HTAC has just stood its path. If you look at CDC, they allow 50 years and above, and they're reviewing now that they may open this to all. The first booster, di ba lahat pwedeng kumuha ng first booster? There's no restriction. Even below 50, below 60, 50, even yung 12 to 17, yung anak ko, nag-booster na siya, no? The first booster only. But on the second booster, it changes, no? It's only 60 years and above, and those who are immunocompromised, I think they will allow the 50 years old, but you have to be immunocompromised. So those are the restrictions. Pero in America, the second booster shot is allowed for 50 years old and above, no? And right now, they are studying to allow, again, they will follow what they did in the first booster shot. They may allow everybody to take it, no? Kasi in yung first booster shot, walang tayong restriction. 12 years and above can take it, no? So I'm not. What I'm saying is that I don't think we have enough time to administer these vaccines because they're already expiring, and it's just a matter of days left. So what I'm saying is that let's prevent this from happening again. Katulad ng sino nag-imbento ng Pfizer at Moderna? Di ba yung Amerikano nag-imbento nun? So siguro naman the people in America and the CDC will know better. They have a full team of researchers. They do it. So if they allow it there and other countries are following it, why will we try to reinvent the wheel and waste time and just sit on it? No, this is just the frustration. This 1 billion pesos could go to somebody else and help them rather than us wasting money.
Octa Research said the positivity rate in the National Capital Region, or NCR, or Metro Manila continues to rise, suggesting that COVID cases have not peaked in this region. The positivity rate in the NCR continues to rise and suggesting that the coronavirus disease have not peaked. Octa Research David also noted that cases are now increasing in many parts of the David are now increasing in many parts of the country and urged the public to observe caution as the subvariants of Omicron remain immune evasive. Now, Mr. David said that it isn't clear what is causing the upward trend. He added that with the increase.
The Department of Health has indicated that despite the sustained increase in infections, most have remained mild and asymptomatic. In a press briefing, DOH officer in charge Under Secretary Maria Rosario Vergere said that most areas show a continuous increase in cases, with the National Capital Region showing the steepest increase, now at almost 900 cases per day. Let's take a look.
Dito sa ating mga datos at mga projections, we do not see na meron tayong plateauing or pagbagal sa ngayon ng pagtaas ng kaso. Actually, in our projections, we are seeing that by the end of July, mas tataas pa ang mga kaso natin.
White House COVID-19 response coordinator Ashish Jha says during a press briefing that U.S. President Joe Biden is being treated with the antiviral Paxlovid after he tested positive for COVID-19. Let's take a look.
Dr. O'Connor examined him thoroughly. He found his exam to be normal, to be at his baseline. And then obviously he recommended that the president take Paxlovid. The president accepted that recommendation and has started Paxlovid and has taken his first course already. Because the president is fully vaccinated, double boosted, his risk of serious illness is dramatically lower. He's also getting treated with a very powerful antiviral, and that further reduces his risk.
Biden's Dr. Kevin O'Connor wrote in an official note that the president was suffering from fatigue, runny nose, and a dry cough starting on Wednesday evening. The CDC, the leading U.S. government health agency, says that older adults are more likely to get severely sick from COVID-19, with the risk increasing with age. The highly transmissible Omicron BA.5 subvariant is currently fueling a new wave of COVID cases in the United States, where hospitalizations have doubled in recent months.
Meanwhile, the Department of Transportation, or DOTR Secretary Jaime Bautista, has tested positive for COVID, according to the Office of the Press Secretary today. Secretary Bautista's RT-PCR, or reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction test result was released on Thursday, 4 days before the first State of the Nation address of President Bongbong Marcos Jr. on Monday, July 25th. Secretary Bautista is now in isolation and is exhibiting mild symptoms of headache and cough, according to a report from the DOTR. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Abangan sa Lutong Daza.
Favorite natin lahat, Pinoy Merienda Classics. Busog sa sarap, busog sa tawanan kasamang walang kakupas-kupas na si Bayani Agbayani.
Espesyal ang ating handa. Meron tayong pansit gamit ang 4 kinds of noodles, pork siomai,
Turon with a twist at masarap na ginumis. Saan ka pa?
Kita-kits sa Lutong Daza.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together, let's stand together. Sa Net 25.
Napakasarap naman ng episode natin ngayong gabi. Busog na ang mga tiyan natin. Busog pa tayo sa mga kwentong bida. Ang award-winning na recipe na ito ang naging foundation ng kanyang food business na tinatawag niyang Tapa-diction.
Tumikim kami sa iba't ibang nag-offer ng mga tapa. Sa sweet side sila halos. So gumawa kami ng version na salty side naman.
Ang pinakamalaking challenge po niya, wala siyang mga kamay. Siguradong taas kamay kayo sa pagkamangha sa kwento ni Maricel Apatan.
Pinag-aralan ko po ito kung papaano po makapag-umpisa, tulungan ko yung sarili ko para makagawa po ako ng iba't ibang trabaho.
At kung kwentong coffee shop lang naman ang usapan, meron kaming nakilalang isang cafe owner sa may bandang Cavite po na meron siyang heartwarming story of his own to share. Ako po ang inyong host, Aga Mula, para sa Bida Kayo kay Aga.
Welcome back here on ASEAN in Focus. We're still coming to you live from Manila in Vietnam with Eliana Sebastian. Now to Singapore, where the country just hanged a convicted drug trafficker today, the 5th execution in the city-state since March, after a court rejected a last-ditch appeal and despite pleas for clemency. Today, Singaporean man Nazeri Lajim was executed in prison, according to the prison service in a statement to AFP. The 64-year-old was convicted in 2017 of possessing over 33 grams or 1.1 ounces of heroin for the purpose of trafficking Singapore's Drug Enforcement Agency said. Now, this was enough to feed the addiction of about 400 abusers for a week, it added. An appeals court on Thursday rejected a last gasp appeal in which Nazeri appeared via video link to stay the execution. Prominent local rights campaigner Kirsten Han told AFP that Nazeri had spent most of his life struggling with drug dependency, starting from the age of 14. Kirsten Han said they would have given Nazeri and others like him meaningful support and space for recovery. But instead, he was punished with incarceration over and over again throughout his life. After a hiatus of more than 2 years, the city state resumed executions in March with the hanging of a Singaporean drug trafficker, and activists fear more will be carried out in coming months. The execution in April of Malaysian trafficker Nagenthran K. Darmelengam sparked international outrage due to concerns that he was mentally disabled.
Vietnamese Foreign Minister Bui Tan Son and his Indonesian counterpart Retno Marsudi on Wednesday co-chaired the fourth meeting of the Joint Committee on Bilateral Cooperation in Jakarta, Indonesia. Retno welcomed Bui to Indonesia, saying it is of significant importance as both countries have reopened borders following the COVID-19 pandemic, which provides an opportunity for the sides to discuss measures to promote bilateral cooperation across fields. Bui also affirmed Vietnam will coordinate closely with Indonesia when it holds the ASEAN chairmanship in 2023. The two ministers also agreed to encourage airlines to increase frequency of flights and consider opening more air routes connecting tourist destinations of the two countries. Bui suggested that the two countries should work together to handle the risk of a global food crisis and that Indonesia limit the application of trade remedies to Vietnamese exports, soon sign a memorandum of understanding on bilateral trade cooperation in the field of rice for the next 4 years.
Meanwhile, the Asian Development Bank slashed its 2022 growth forecast for developing Asia and warned that economic conditions could worsen as the war in Ukraine and supply chain disruptions drive up prices. The Philippine-based bank said while the impact of COVID-19 had eased, the region was now grappling with the fallout from Russia's invasion of Ukraine, lockdowns in China, and aggressive interest rate hikes. To reflect the deterioration across developing Asia, which stretches from the Cook Islands in the Pacific to Kazakhstan in Central Asia, the bank cut its 2022 growth forecast to 4.6%. Now that compares with its previous prediction in April of 5.2% and the 6.9% growth chalked up last year. It also increased its inflation forecast for the region this year to 4.2% from 3.7% due to surging food and fuel prices. The bank warned risks to the outlook remained elevated.
The ASEAN Plus 3 Macroeconomic Research Office, or the AMRO, raised its 2022 growth forecast for the Philippines to 6.9%, the highest in the region, amid slashed projections for ASEAN Plus 3 countries. The regional macroeconomics drivers of growth in the country. The driver for this growth is basically the opening of economy. AMRO chief economist Hoe E. Kor said in a virtual briefing earlier. He said growth will also be driven by domestic consumption and investment, such as infrastructure or projects under the Build, Build, Build program. Kor said the domestic economy is expected to do relatively well in terms of growth this year amid the COVID-19 infections, due in part to the continued vaccination drive.
Back to Vietnam, where it has detected the BA.2.12.1 Omicron subvariant following genome sequencing of 30 samples at Ho Chi Minh City-based Pasteur Institute. 8.2 subvariant accounts for 30% of the samples, according to Dr. Nguyen Vu Tong, the deputy director of the institute. The other detected subvariants are BA4, BA5, and BA2.12.1. Vietnam reports imported BA.5 Omicron subvariant. The BA2.12.1 is the 12th lineage to the branch off from BA2. As of July 20, Vietnam reported 10,763,694 infection cases, including 9,832,646 recoveries and 43,091 deaths.
The UN's highest court will decide on Friday whether to throw out a case lodged by the Gambia against military-ruled Myanmar for the alleged genocide of Rohingya Muslims. The West African nation accused Myanmar at the International Court of Justice, or ICJ, in 2019 of breaching the UN Genocide Convention over a bloody 2017 crackdown. Hundreds of thousands of minority Rohingya fled to the Buddhist majority Southeast Asian country during the operation, bringing with them harrowing reports of murder, rape, and arson. The Hague-based ICJ said in a statement that it will, at 1,300 GMT, deliver its judgment on the preliminary objections raised by Myanmar. Myanmar says the court should dismiss the case on illegal grounds, or rather legal grounds, while it is still in its preliminary stages and before it starts dealing with the genocide allegations in full.
We'll be back with more news right after this break. Stay tuned.
Province of Bohol, we produced majority of the products because of our terrain. We focused on the food security for the Boholano, like rice, corn, root crops.
I want to tell to the whole world that we Filipinos exist in the chocolate world.
As much as possible, we wanted our guests to stay and enjoy the facilities that we have here. Yes, that's right.
So that they won't go out.
Yeah, it's a one-stop shop already.
Wala pang masyadong foreigners, pero yung local natin talagang umano sila. Nag-travel talaga ang locals natin.
Open for Business is in Bohol, and Bohol is open for business!
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Ano po ba yung bili ng tinapay? Nagugutom kasi walang mahanap na bakery dito eh. Tinapay lang po, naghanap ako. May potential to. Sir, handa ka na ba?
Kuya, pwede pong patulong, please. Pagawan mo ng paraan. Masakit na po kasi. Kuya, wag masakit. Ito po, ang sakit, kuya.
Huwag mo hilahin. Business ng show business stars.
Friend! Grabe, ang tagal natin hindi nakita. Naalala mo ba ako? Ikaw, kamusta ka naman? Nagba-volleyball ka pa rin ba? Ako po yung nawawala ninyong anak. Tay, kayo po ba yung tunay kong tatay?
Oh, no! Biro only! It's BO sa Net 25. Biro only, bro.
Tulad ng dati, hindi nagbabago, gaya ng dati. Ako pa rin ito, tulad ng dati.
Hi guys, I'm Ben from Ben Music. Please catch me on Letters and Music on air and online this Saturday, July 23, 1 to 2 p.m. Only here in Net 25. See you guys!
Tulad ng dati. Gaya ng dati.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. The news continues here, and we're still coming to you live from Manila and Vietnam. Former Asia's fastest woman, Lydia de Vega, is in very critical condition due to complications caused by stage 4 breast cancer, diagnosed back in 2018, according to her daughter, Stephanie Mercado, sharing this on social media on Wednesday, July 20. The family of the two-time Olympian is also asking for prayers for the track and field icon, is also open to financial assistance for her medical expenses. She was diagnosed with this in 2018 and has been silently fighting the disease for the past 4 years. As the disease is progressing, her condition is quickly worsening despite undergoing many procedures, including brain surgery, according to her daughter. She said, "I am requesting everyone to please pray for her in this desperate time of need. If anyone would like to assist financially to cover her medical expenses, any donation would be deeply and wholeheartedly appreciated." De Vega, a bemedaled Southeast Asian Games athlete, represented the Philippines in the Seoul 1988 Olympics for the 100-meter event, and in 1984, the Los Angeles Games for both 100-meter and 200-meter athletics event. The 57-year-old retired athlete also secured championships in Asian athletics back in the 80s.
President Marcos Jr. on Wednesday ordered the Philippine Sports Commission to help track and field legend Lydia de Vega Mercado, who is said to be diagnosed with cancer and is in very critical condition. Marcos Jr. reportedly instructed the PSC through Officer in Charge Guillermo Iroy Jr. to extend all help possible to support to de Vega Mercado in her toughest race. The many-time Asian champion is racing against time and the complications brought about by stage 4 breast cancer. The chief executive is believed to have given the order to Iroy during the courtesy visit of the Philippine national women's football team to Malacanang following their historic win of the 2022 AFF Women's Championship. De Vega, once touted as Asia's fastest woman, has been quietly battling the disease since 2018.
President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. lauded the Philippine women's national football team, Filipinas, for giving the country the greatest gift after its historic win during the weekend. Take a look.
Allow me to just send my best and strongest and most fervent good luck wishes to our women's football team who have managed to reach the finals and are now vying for the championship of the ASEAN Football Federation finals. Talagang napakagaling ng Pinay at napakagaling ng Pinoy at nakita natin basta't naman ay tayo'y may teamwork, tayo may pakisama sa isa't isa. Nakita naman umabot na kayo sa finals. Kaunting swerte na lang, kaunting sakripisyo na lang. Hindi na finals to, magcha-champion na kayo. So good luck, good luck, good luck, good luck. Ako at ang buong Pilipinas ay nasa likod ninyo. And we will be watching and waiting for the good result for which we will be congratulating you for. Good luck to you. And I am sure you will do very well.
During the meeting, President Marcos vowed to continue providing government support to national athletes, especially those who are still studying, since it allows them to develop discipline as well as learn how to sacrifice, be gracious in victory, and teamwork. He claimed support for student athletes dwindled after the Department of Education, Culture and Sports became the Department of Education, or DepEd. President Marcos said he will remedy this during his term.
Raring and eager to spring into action, 144 athletes in 11 sports aim to make the flag and country proud in the 11th ASEAN Para Games, scheduled from July 30 to August 6 in Surakarta, Indonesia. The list of the national squad bound for Indonesia was finalized last weekend. Philippine Paralympic Committee President Mike Barredo said, announcing the composition of the contingent on Thursday. The PPC chief was grateful for the Philippine Sports Commission in enabling the national para-athlete to train intensively inside a bubble for over a month at the Phil Sports Complex in Pasig City to gear themselves for the regional meet. The track and field team has the biggest number of entries with 24, led by Tokyo Paralympic Games veterans thrower Jeanette Aceveda and wheelchair racer Gerald Mangliwan, who was named skipper of the Philippine athletic contingent. Fully funded by the PSC, Baredo will head the 212-man delegation scheduled to leave on a chartered flight for the Java provincial capital of Surakarta on July 26.
And that is the latest news here today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Eliana, for keeping me company here on ASEAN in Focus.
Thank you so much, Alma. And I would just like to greet my Lolo, who's celebrating his birthday today. A happy birthday. From EBC Vietnam Bureau, I'm Eliana Sebastian, and we live in extraordinary times.
Happy birthday po. And that's it for today's broadcast. We'll see you back next week. Same time, same place here on ASEAN in Focus. And stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good day.